Welcome to the Wellness Growth Code podcast. I'm your host, Justine, and this is where we talk to leaders in the health and wellness space about what's actually driving growth right now, from visibility to smarter systems to AI. No fluff, just real insights you can take and use in your own business. So let's dive into it. Today, let's get into the episode. I'm joined by Julie Swarts, CEO of the Employee Assistance Professionals Association, supporting professionals across more than 4 million organizations globally and in over 40 countries. Is that number correct, Julie?
EAPs are in over 4 million organizations just in the US alone. EAP work is taking off internationally as well as in the US.
Oh my gosh. And let's backtrack. For someone that doesn't know about what the organization is, could you give us a rundown?
So EAPA, Employee Assistance Professionals Association, is the association supporting EAPs throughout the globe. EAPs are usually mental health professionals that work in the workplace and support employees we hope to have them live their best lives and have their most extensive positive work experience. EAPA, I like to think of EAPA as kind of the equivalent to American Medical Association. The AMA is for doctors. We are that for employee assistance professionals.
How did you end up in this role? Because you've got a diverse background.
I'm a nonprofit professional. I am not a mental health professional, so I joke that I play one on TV. I've worked in both the sports and the nonprofit space. I've worked for 5 higher educations. I ran an Olympic sport. I've done a lot of different things supporting really wonderful missions. And my personal travel have led me to this job because I've had both friends and relatives who have been positively impacted by EAPs. I had a friend who their EAP helped her to realize that she was drinking too much and she was an alcoholic, and they helped her get clean and sober. And then I also had a relative who called me and was seeing dragons come out of tailpipes of cars and was profoundly suicidal. And as soon as he got to work, I said, call your EAP, let's get you some professional help. EAPs reacted in the best way they could. They got him right away into a mental health facility. Long story short, he was diagnosed as bipolar, and through some good work with psychiatrists and therapists, he is now medicated and living his best life and is a contributing member of society. So that's how the positive story should come out. Yeah. I have positive and negative stories when companies make choices that are penny wise in my view and pound foolish, because often it comes out in the negative. So They pay more and have less quality of work-life existence.
I guess that's such a strong why when you're seeing the results, like that's huge. And if I'm jumping around a little bit, but like if anyone is struggling at their work, can they just call you guys, or does the workplace
we don't provide the service. They need to contact their own EAP at their company.
Right.
If also I want to put a plug in for 988, if it's an emergency, don't hesitate, call 988, and that mental health hotline is funded by our tax dollars, will help you get immediately into assistance if it's a crisis. That's really the place to go. We hear stories about EAPs helping somebody because a parent comes to live with them and they're just at their wit's end. Or they've got a new dog and it's tearing up their house, and how can I go to work and deal with this? There's challenges in areas where they're getting divorced or financial stress. I'm recording this still during the TSA crisis. I'm sure those TSA workers are incredibly stressed in their mental health, money, and we know they'll get paid in the long run, but how do they put food on the table? That's a big financial and both mental health and financial crisis for them. The federal government actually must have each department have EAPs. So I'm hoping the TSA agents are reaching out to that EAP area and being supported. We actually have members who work in the Congress, both the House and the Senate, and they work extensively. After January 6th, there was a tremendous need for EAP work, and Capitol Police as well. They struggled and dealt with a lot of issues post January 6th. 9/11 happened. There was a lot of crisis. Right? COVID sped up the conversation about mental health that was always destined to happen, but it really impacted a lot of people in a really negative mental health way.
Does the organisation have to have a certain number of employees, or what is that certain number of employees before they usually get like you guys in or the EAP in?
Most organizations either have, there's several different ways you can have an EAP. You can have an internal, so a lot of labor unions have a full-time internal person or persons. Many hospitals have that, an internal person or persons to be their EAPs, and they're on site. The new model, of course, with the growth of all these online platforms, is to have one that you can connect with online. And if it's not a crisis, but an issue, you can call a number or set up a schedule through an online platform that a company pays for. It is entirely free for a worker. There is no charge. And it is entirely 100% confidential, and this has been held in courts. Just like a therapist and a doctor and a lawyer and a priest, an EAP cannot be forced to tell anyone, aka your employer, what's going on with you, unless you sign a physical release giving them permission to do that. Now, having said that, they also follow those same rules that therapists follow, that if you are in, if you're suicidal, or you're about to commit a crime, or you're about to hurt yourself or somebody else, they have to act. They have a duty for care.
And you said, I mean, one thing that stood out is you were talking about how most people don't even realize they have access to it. Why do you think something so valuable is so underutilized?
I think because many companies view it as a benefit. So if you think of it as a corporate strategy, and we advocate for having a CWO that sits with the chief marketing officer, the chief information officer, the chief financial officer, a chief wellness officer that is responsible for both the physical and the mental health of their workforce. And if you have that, you really have much more availability and promotion of that EAP. Most companies tell you about all your benefits coming in, and then they call it a benefit, and you're overwhelmed that first day. You're meeting all these people, you're new, you've got all this paperwork to fill out, and they go, by the way, you have an EAP. And unless there is a concerted effort by managers, by the EAP staff, by the corporate C-suite, then people don't realize they have this benefit. Or they go, I know I have that, but I don't know what they do. So it's really important that leadership make sure that they utilize that information, that the EAP can hold town halls to talk about what they do and what they, how they can support staff, meet with managers and how help them grow and help them understand that they're there to help, and then meet with the C-suite to make sure that it's really from the top down. So if the CEO is putting in his public calendar, I'm going to the gym, when they're really going to a therapist, that's a message that they don't want anyone to know. Rather than saying, I'm going to go to my therapist once a week or once every other week, and I'm going to make it very public. Or I use the EAP, please join me, and when you need that, please know that that service is there for you. And our research, there's a great research study by Dr. Mark Gatridge that is called the Workplace Outcome Suite, and it shows that a good EAP program, for every dollar a company invests in it, will bring $5 back, because people will use less sick time, people will turn over less, and people will have a better quality of life in their jobs, when we call presentism. How much do you pay attention on your job? Or are you off thinking about that dog tearing up your house? Or how am I going to pay my next, I'm going to put gas in my car? Or do I have a mental illness that's not being addressed? Yeah. So all those things come together to make EAP a very crucial corporate strategy if you have corporate leaders who are willing to embrace it and really promote it. There's actually awards for companies that embrace good mental health practices. Do you, at your company, do you have the ability to take a mental health sick day? Is that accepted? Or would you really be nervous about announcing that? If you do have a mental health condition, or you're being treated for it, can you tell your boss? Can you tell your colleagues? Are you comfortable with that? Every year they do a workplace study on mental health, and if you can go to their website, you can see that and see what the status of people feel that mental health in the workplace is at this time in the world.
Yeah, that statistic is like a no-brainer. I kind of had a giggle because, working for yourself or very small, where it's an under 10 team.
Well, you can get part of an EAP where you can sign up for a limited amount, because most contracts are based on per head. So maybe they pay, 10 cents a head for this period of time. So just because you're smaller doesn't mean you don't have the ability to have that access. We're a small team and we have access to an EAP.
That's
So
amazing.
it's really doable for just about every single body, universities, hospitals. But I will tell you even more than those big companies. I have a member of Major League Baseball on our board of directors. He is an EAP, and he works with all the Major League Baseball teams to give them mental health support because they deal with a lot of stress and challenges in their field. It is not just Coca-Cola or Amazon, but it can be very small. So, check with your HR department, check your what is now under benefits, and if not, advocate to your leaders that maybe they should consider having an EAP. Young people today are going into jobs not only negotiating salary and vacation, but they're also saying, and what are you going to do for my mental health? And I really respect that that's coming along. My generation doesn't do that. We missed that boat. We were happy to get physical health benefits. New generations are addressing it from a mental health as well. And I think it's a wonderful direction that's the country is taking.
I know, I think I was chatting to my husband this morning about like when we drop our kids off at school, the teachers are waiting outside, get them out of the car, give them hugs and kiss. And he was like, when I grew up in Ireland, it was not like that at all. It was like a smack over the head and in you go to school. So I think the same thing. I'm so glad that it's shifting, especially I know for men need extra support. I know women kind of have each other sometimes to talk to, but men tend to, internalize it a little bit more. So I think what you're doing is just so amazing. I guess your role personally, I'd love to know more about like a moment that you've been really proud of in your career since you've been in this role.
Day to day, we do a lot of education. So this spring, we offer our members 12 free education courses, and then we have 35 paid education courses. So we vet and hire the instructors, and we do this all online, and our staff runs it all online from a variety of different locations. We're all remote. And we make sure all the membership is done. We also offer a certification that EAPs can get certified. Because there's no license as in social workers or therapists, we offer certification that has become the gold standard of the industry. And it is now international, which is wonderful. It's now being offered in Japan. And we're working towards getting it off the ground in South Africa. EAP, as I said, it really is a global growth mindset. And next week I'm going to Korea to speak for a conference on EAP in Asia. So it is something that's really growing. So we want to encourage everyone to check your HR person. And if you don't, ask why not. Because EAP work is crucial they are the front line of mental health across this country. For most people, they are the first challenge person they will go and see if there is a crisis in their lives. And my hats are off to these are amazing people. They're incredibly nurturing and caring, and most of them come from the social work or therapy space and have come into EAP and just said, I found my calling.
I love that. And you said you're in Korea next week. You seem to have such a unique global perspective. Are you seeing any specific trends right now when it comes to employee well-being or workplace support?
Well, we are, just like everybody else, exploring what AI is going to mean for this profession, right? Is that going to be the call centers, is the billing? Of course, we think AI will take care of. Do you want to talk to a robot as your therapist? That's the big question. Do you want to tell your challenges to somebody that isn't a live person who has never had their heart broken or been dumped or lost a job or struggled financially? Some younger people really like talking to, ChatGPT, but there are many who don't. And the concern is right now that there's no guardrails on it. There was a case I believe it was the UK, where a bot was used by a company instead of a live EAP. And it was very logical. A person came to it with lots of depression issues, and eventually it concluded that he was so depressed that he should commit suicide, and the person did. And you can imagine what the fallout of that has been, in legal situations. So there's still a long way to go with the AI situation. There's also a concern, as I said, everything you tell an EAP is confidential. It follows, in the United States, it follows HIPAA rules. What happens if you tell that to a bot? Could it be up on the website? Could it be your bosses get it? I don't know. It's still a brave new world out there, a little scary, and we want to make sure that AI is being utilized in an appropriate way with the future. And we actually have, EAPA has an AI task force being headed by our president, Daryl Joseph, from the Caribbean. And there's an international task force looking at ways that we can embrace AI in areas of concern.
And you bounced to my next question, so that was great. I think even now, when we were talking in our call before this one, you were saying like AI is kind of like a massage chair. It's useful, but it
That's what
doesn't.
I like to say.
And I love that.
I think, massage chairs are wonderful. They're great to sit in them. If you've ever been late, waiting in the airport and they let you sit there for 5-10 minutes, but it will never replace a masseuse. And I say that, I believe that with therapists and EAPs. It is great to have a bot to reach out to, but it is not the same. As I said, a bot has never been dumped. A bot has never gone through struggling for a new job after they've been fired or laid off. A bot has never struggled through depression. Talking to someone who's been there, done that, to me is a no-brainer. I want someone who can truly relate to me and the struggles that I've gone through. That's how I feel, and no bot will ever take that away. I think currently, I think that's pretty universal across the mainstream of the workforce.
Yeah. And chatting to a lot of therapists and mental health workers on this podcast, it's a similar sentiment as what you're talking about. I always ask everyone, in terms of your business, if you had like a magic wand to fix one thing in your business right now, like what's slowing you down or holding you back, what would that be?
I think one of the challenges in this space is that, especially during COVID, a lot of for-profits saw that there was a lot of money in mental health. And we are being faced with a lot of for-profit industries that are coming in that don't have there are some that do, but many of them don't have a mental health background. When I hear of a new one with, slick apps and you just press this button and do that, their background of their leadership team is all in venture capitalism and IT and marketing. There's no one on board that's like a chief medical officer or even just someone at a social worker level or an EAP or a therapist to advise them. So they're building these businesses based on profitability, not based on a mission of serving mental health. And I think that's a real scary piece. A lot of those kinds of folks are saying, EAP, that's old-fashioned. I've heard that numerous times. So they launch their programs, and you look at what they're doing EAP work. They're just calling it something else. Branding, I guess, is everything. But EAP is a tried and true method. Its roots are in the alcohol addiction that was in the workplace back in the 40s and 50s in the U.S., and it has evolved from there to be way more than just alcohol addiction. So my concern of the future is, are people not going to be knowledgeable enough to understand the difference between an EAP who is really concerned about your well-being and your health and a slick app that is just there to make money? Yeah. And that's the concern. If we could get all of them in a room and convince them that people are the bottom line here, that people really matter and people are what the bottom line is about. And when you see a worker come up off a struggle and go back to work and succeed, that's what these folks do. And it's amazing. Just because you call it something different doesn't change it. And I want to get them in that right mindset. And then also getting a standardized certification in the industry across the globe so that people who claim to be doing this work really have the skill set for that and the mastery of it.
Mm-hmm. If people want to learn more or find out more or just like intrigued by this whole conversation, where could they go to find out more?
So our website is EAPASSN.org, which is EAPassociation.org, EAPASSN.org. Or if you just Google EAPA, you can get there. So you can see all the different benefits we offer our members. We do an annual conference every year, which moves around the U.S. I would love eventually to move it around the globe. It's wonderful to have hundreds and hopefully someday thousands of EAPs coming together to learn, to network, to grow. I say everybody who comes to that conference leaves with 10 new best friends and great networking experience. I said they are nurturing, giving people. It is truly a wonder to work with them, and because they just are a certain kind of people who innately care so much about their fellow mankind. And we want to see workers thrive.
doing some valuable work. This is such a valuable conversation. Yeah, so hit that website. I'll put the link into the show notes. And Julie, really thank you so much for your time. And I know you said this is your first weekend off in a very long time, so I really hope you do something lovely for yourself.
Thank you so much.